Hello, I'm Vanessa Jacoby. I'm a professor of obstetrics, gynecology, and reproductive sciences at UCSF. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Clinical Research and the Director of the CTSI. I'm really excited and so honored to have a guest today to interview Dr. Kelechi Uwaezuoke. Dr. Uwaezuoke is an Assistant Director for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnerships at SF Build at San Francisco State University. She has extensive experience working with historically underrepresented and disadvantaged students pursuing careers in health and marginalized communities addressing health inequities. She spent the last 15 years developing, managing, and evaluating programs that impact students and communities of color throughout the state of California. Dr. Uwaezuoke is also the San Francisco State SF Build Liaison to the UCSF Latinx Center of Excellence Aspiring Physicians Program. I've had the wonderful opportunity to spend some time with Dr. Uwaezuoke, and I'm so grateful for you joining us today.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. It's a real treat and pleasure to be here. Thank you for considering me for this opportunity.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you to this role with SF Build focused on supporting students from underrepresented communities in this way.
Snippets, right? I'm a believer. I'm a daughter of immigrants. I'm a mentor, a master encourager, as I like to say, a disruptor of inadequate status quos, professional atmosphere changer, if you will. But ultimately, my journey to this position is really a full circle moment. I was born in Nigeria, grew up in Los Angeles, California, go Lakers, and then attended UC Berkeley for undergrad. At the time, like so many students of color who were interested in helping people, I thought I was going to become a pediatrician. And then OChem happened, and we started to reconsider this. And so I ultimately had some really wonderful experiences during undergrad and ended up in a post-bac program actually at San Francisco State University. I won't say how many years ago, but at that time I had the great pleasure of meeting who is now my current boss and PI, which is Dr. Leticia Marquez Magaña, who was the PI for Build and the brains behind the Build SF Build program. I also have the great fortune of knowing her husband, who was my mentor, Dr. Tomas Magaña. He is a pediatrician. And so I've known them both for about half of my life, or over half of my life, I should say. And so as I've been navigating this space of first coming from undergrad, serving as a middle school teacher in Richmond for a few years, and then going back to get my master's in public health, just staying in touch with people, staying in contact with people. And then ultimately going back for my doctorate work at UC Berkeley, Letty reached out to me. I actually reached out to her because someone shared the grant that she got, and I was just congratulating her. And this was the first segment of the Build grant, which is the first 5 years. And then she reached back out to me, and I think it was probably still a year and a half from graduating. The way that she tells it, she tries to recruit me for 2 years. The way that I tell it is I couldn't drop out of the doctoral program, so I had to finish. And then I came aboard the SF Build family, and it's really just been an amazing experience. And Build is all about increasing diversity in the biomedical workforce, right? It's about building infrastructure that leads to diversity. It's about transformation. It's about, like I said, disrupting status quo and how we kind of view things and how we view students, how we view scholars, how you view faculty, how you view the institutions in the context of the environment in which we are trying to support and really nurture students who have been historically marginalized and historically underrepresented in the biomedical workforce. And that ultimately expands out into the STEM, double M workforce, the health workforce, and all of the things that are related to that. So the short snippet of how I ended up where I am at present.
So that really highlights the importance of close mentorship and strong mentorship. Can you tell us a little about some advice or guidance you have for students that can be really effective for them, particularly students from underrepresented groups in the biomedical sciences?
Absolutely. I think I come to this with so many different lenses. One, as a mentee who has had the great blessing and fortune of having amazing mentees, of which Dr. Letty is just one of them. Her husband is one of them. Dr. Amani from UC Berkeley is one of them. And so I've had really awesome people pour into me. And so when I speak with students, I try to just encourage them, one, to realize that while they are still coming up on their journey, they also have an important role to play in this relationship. I think the greatest thing that I tend to hear from students is they feel like, oh, I'm only a student. I don't have anything to offer, to the other person. And so some of my advice is for them to acknowledge that your existence in the pathway, your existence as a student, as a scholar, is something that is extremely beneficial for those of us who are, quote unquote, a little ahead of the game, right? Because we feed off of you, we thrive off of you. It's them to value and treasure their voice and their worth and their value that they bring to those mentoring relationships. And also to use that voice, right? To not be afraid to approach people, to ask them if they would be willing to be a mentor, and to understand that it's not going to be a one size fits all, and it's not one mentor that you have, for your entire life that can fill all the roles that you need. And so understanding that you may have a mentor that maybe is more of sort of like the sponsor, right? In the professional role. You may have the mentor that you reach out to when you're like, I am dropping out this semester, and that's all there is to it, right? Or you may have the mentor who is the person that is going to help guide you with your research as you're developing that research question and that specific aim, and they're just totally there to encourage you. And so I think a mentor wears many different hats, and that's something that is incredibly important in this research arena in particularly because there's so many historically underrepresented students who do not see themselves represented in these spaces and in these places. And so for me, it is always important for me personally to be able to give back and to be able to be that example, but then also to recognize that a mentor is not just about a skin color, it's not just about shared background, although that is amazing and phenomenal. A mentor is that person that sees the best of you in you, sometimes when you don't even see it for yourself. And they can really help to cultivate who you are and really nurture you as a person and as a professional and as one who's going to contribute great things to this research enterprise and into medicine and healthcare and all of those arenas and spaces.
I love that phrase, a mentor is someone who sees the best in you. I know community partnerships have been a significant part of your work. Can you talk a little about why you think those are really valuable and how they can really contribute to not only training programs, but the research process?
Community is everything. I mean, right? Like it's hard to go through life without that. We know the familiar phrase, it takes a village. And it's often associated with it takes a village to raise a child, but you can insert any other aspect of life and living into that phrase as well. And so I think if you view community as villages, right, then I think we have a more profound respect for the importance that communities play. I think sometimes we get into these, I don't want to say tit for tats, but these conversations about, what comes up for people when they hear the term community, because you can say community in a room of 50 to 100 people, and you may have 50 to 100 different images that raise up for people. And so I think one, just acknowledging the diversity that can be found in the terminology itself is also a wonderful thing, because that means that the more diverse that we are being, and diverse just literally means different varying sources, then the more then we can hear from people who have walked life in different shoes, right? Who have had different experiences in life and can offer different insights and different perspectives and different points of view and vantage points. And so for me, being able to acknowledge the role of community, particularly in research, is something that's so crucial, because there are so many important topics that are health related, in which there are certain communities that are not adequately represented. And so for me, research is not it's not so much even what you find out. Of course, that's important, but research really is, it's the questions that you ask. And it's hard to ask the right questions if you don't have the quote unquote right people in the room. And who are the right people in the room? It is the people who have the passion, who feel that this is not just another chance at a published article, if you will, but this is their passion. This is their life's work. This is their purpose. And so for me, when we think about bringing in community and the voice of people who are not historically included, that is the only way to make research fulfilling, to make sure that we are able to ask the right questions and then be able to offer up a plethora of different responses to the complex and, as we learned in my doctorate, the wicked problems that we see in society. And so I think that you can't really do anything without community. You can't do research, you can't do education, you can't do, policy work. It's just very difficult to do if you're trying to do it in a silo without the voice of community and the people who live it every single day.
I was really struck when you were talking about that I realized you are often have different two roles, because you work, you run a program at San Francisco State, so you're an institution and you then partner with community, but then you also serve as a community partner on many UCSF research endeavors. Can you talk about that piece a little, in terms of how your experience has been related to advice you would give to UCSF researchers who are wanting to have successful partnerships with community members in their research project?
As a woman, as an African woman, as an immigrant, all the intersectional identities that I hold, I do sort of navigate life in certain ways, and I represent different things to different people, all while being myself all at the same time. And so for me, I think what's been really, really nice about my opportunity to work in the different spaces at UCSF is just that acknowledgement. Right. UCSF is it's not a perfect place, right? No place is. It can be viewed as a machine, in the ivory tower, right, if you will. But I think what's probably most important, at least for me, particularly in this phase of my professional development, is not that you are perfect, but that you acknowledge your imperfections and that you strive to get it right. And I do feel that at least the spaces that I've been in at UCSF, they are a space that acknowledges their imperfections, and they are striving to get it right. Have made a lot of wonderful accomplishments, and I think largely in part to their commitment to community partnerships and being willing to understand, like, hey, you are not the quote unquote expert in the room about this, and you do need these other voices, right, to even figure out what you need to be asking, let alone answering. And so I think for me, being able to be in the spaces where there's respect for the voice of community, where there's an understanding that, yeah, there may be discomfort, but discomfort does not mean this is not an unsafe place. And I think sometimes we mix up those two, and that's something that's really important, particularly from a place of community. And so I think that is one of the things that I offer to UCSF researchers, right? I really encourage them to just kind of regularly, as a researcher, scan your room, scan the environment that you're in, look for the voices and the faces and the experiences that are missing, and intentionally go after that. Try to fill that void. Be clear and transparent about your why. Why are you even doing this research? What really is your driving force and your motivation? And I really do encourage researchers at UCSF and beyond to just sit with discomfort when it arises. I think oftentimes we are facing unexpected circumstances or challenges or situations and outcome, and our fight or flight kicks in, which is understandable. But that fight or flight mode can also often cause us to completely ignore what the discomfort is trying to speak to us. And if we listen closely enough, our discomfort will speak volumes. And I really do believe that discomfort is the base ingredient for change. And there's a lot of change that we still need to have happen. And so I'm not even asking you to be comfortable with discomfort, none of that. Acknowledge you're uncomfortable. That's fine, but just sit with it just a little while longer, just so you can hear, what that discomfort is saying to you. Because if you listen to that and then work with that, along with all of the other voices of the community and the people that you have in the room, great things happen ultimately. That's my personal belief, and that's my personal experience. So
I so appreciate your time today. I'm really excited for the UCSF community and beyond to hear more about you and the work that you've been doing.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, to you and all of CTSI. It's been a real pleasure partnering with you all. So looking forward to more work together and more accomplishments in the future.
Thank you, Kelechi. We are so lucky to have your partnership.